Welcome to Strictly Speaking. This is our conversations with theater makers. My name is Jamie Mellema, and I am the resident scenic designer for University Theater. We're so happy to have all of you all joining us tonight for the series. I want to say thank you to all who have tuned in so far and for your support of the arts at NC State and of University Theater. Our guest tonight is SHAUNA JOHANNESEN, Vancouver actor and filmmaker. SHAUNA, welcome to our show, I guess. Let's go ahead and get started. Thanks again for coming to talk with us.
I'm really excited.
I've been enjoying doing these because I feel like it's such a great excuse to talk to people I haven't talked to in ages. Yeah. And I think we've known each other.
So
what was that?
I said, I also just miss people. So it's so nice to just talk.
Right, there's that. And I think we've known each other since 97.
Yep, I think so.
Wow. I have really enjoyed over the years, like coming across you on TV. Like, cause I'm not really good at keeping up with like what all the projects everybody is, I know is doing. So sometimes I'll hear about it, but then I will forget about it. And then all of a sudden, like this Christmas, we watched Noelle for the first time and I was like, shut up. And I just scream out and Adam, my partner, is like, what are you screaming about?
It's actually delightful. I mean, for me, it's really nice when I'm in something that people see, because lots of things I'm in maybe don't make it all the way everywhere, or they're, it's a small part on something and it gets missed. But when people see it, it's so fun because in a way, I'll get messages that say, I saw you, I was watching a show with my daughter or whatever. And I kind of feel like we got to visit in their living room just for like a second. It's this nice way of connecting, even though obviously it's not a real thing.
Right. So, how are things going there? And maybe Canada at large? Are you guys like moving ahead with projects these days, or?
So yes, we're filming. There's a fair amount of filming going on in Vancouver. For maybe people who don't know, we kind of are called Hollywood North sometimes. Just because we're in the same time zone and such as LA, and we have a lot of Vancouver's landscape actually has a lot to be desired in that it's there's mountains, there's ocean, there's farmland. So Vancouver plays
lots of places.
A lot of places that are not Vancouver. And there are some tax credits and things if people come up here, and the Canadian dollar is usually in their favor. And so that's nice for people like me who live and work here. We know a lot of the work we do is kind of like service work, we would call it. Like US productions will come up here and we'll kind of be, not usually the leads, usually like the smaller parts. But nevertheless, it's great. So we're filming. It's a whole new ballgame to be filming in this era.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everyone who's at work right now is feeling the same way, that things are very different. And I kind of every time, I was on set for the first time back in August during the pandemic, and I looked around and I had been on the same set like 8 months before, and I just remember looking around going like, if somebody had showed me this in November of like last year when I was on set, I would not have known what this post-apocalyptic kind of situation was with all of these masks and everybody. Everything was people are very careful. There's a lot of protocols in place, so I feel good working.
That's good, at least. Yeah. Did you, while things were sort of not moving ahead, did you come across any fun projects like Zoom shows or anything like that in the meantime, or were you just like too busy to, be a people?
Yeah, being a people was hard. And a lot of people were like, I'm watching so much TV, and I was like, I'm not. I am having trouble just like kind of managing other things, and just transitioning. I thought, like, my husband and I are both artists and we work from home a lot, but we have two small kids and we lost our childcare for a good portion of the beginning parts. We were just like, if we could, if this was a time to just focus on our own projects, we could maybe do that, but there were so many other life things going on that wasn't the case. As an actor too, I'm pointing like you can see, there's a big blue wall here that I have on, that we painted in our basement now. So because all of the auditions have gone online. And so instead of going to see a casting director in a space, You're doing it just like in your own basement or like in your bedroom or in your living room and sending it into the ether. And it's a very different experience.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna
so
say that must be very challenging.
there are positives and negatives. Like the positive part for me is like I've had to watch myself a lot, and that's been really interesting because I get to see what I'm sending in. But the negative is you also see what you're sending in. You have to watch yourself, and that's hard. And it also means like my husband is reading with me and like filming me, and he's not an actor. He's great, but he's not an actor. And a lot of people are doing kind of using people on Zoom. But that just feels like one more thing to organize.
Right.
And just the thing I think I miss the most is just the in-person contact, like seeing, and a casting director will often give you some feedback, or they will give you like a direction in the room, or you'll come in and they'll kind of give you a last minute like tweak or something, or they'll allow you to do it again with some feedback. And with in the absence of that, you really feel like you're playing blind a little bit, artistically. And just as a person, I just miss people. And as an actor, then a lot of your work is auditioning when you're an actor. Like most actors don't work all the time. It would be lovely to work all the time, but mostly you're auditioning. That is your work. And I miss feeling like an actor because I would see my colleagues and my friends. I would see the casting directors, and now I don't.
Right. Yeah. I guess on the plus side, you do get the chance to like do as many takes as you want for what you're sending in. So you're like, this is going to be the best possible version. But yeah, that in-person connection.
Yeah. And you lose a little bit of the adrenaline and like that kind of the way that you rise to the challenge, like when you walk through the room and you kind of bring that. And
yeah,
when it's like 11:30 at night, because that's when you could kind of get this done at your house and you're in the basement. It's sometimes I'm not sure it is the best possible version that's being sent out there.
Right.
At least I can do 40 takes.
That's right. So okay. In your own words, like how can you define what it means to be a professional actor? I mean, you kind of hit on it a little bit. As like your job is to audition, but also you've made projects too, like you've directed and written things. So what does that role of being a professional actor mean for you?
Yeah. It's a really good question. And I think there's a lot of parts to it in a way. Like I kind of think of myself as a storyteller, because I do work in different ways. I've written plays, I've written for the screen, I've written, I've directed, I act. I like stories. I'm really interested in stories. Performing is particularly enjoyable. And I especially when you get to do it live with theater and you get to like live the experience with the audience and have that kind of, so like the creative part of acting, I feel like is this wonderful total experience where you get to lend yourself, your physical self, your emotional self, your spiritual self, your intellectual self, all of those things to a character. You get to embody a character. It's different when you're working in real time in theater and experiencing that with the audience versus when you do it like, in film and you're doing things kind of piecemeal and separated and in part. But nevertheless, you're doing this sort of the same thing. But professionally, being an actor, I have a friend who's a writer and director, and she gets really upset when actors talk about acting as a lifestyle. She says it's not a lifestyle, it's a career, but it comes with a lifestyle.
Right.
And I don't know, like you and I, one of the places that we worked together was at the North Shore Music Theater, and that was the first place I actually saw that. I feel like I was an intern, just learning about stuff. But I remember watching the actors and the theater creators and all of these people and thinking, oh, they work every night, like Tuesday to Saturday or Sunday, like Tuesday to Saturday, and they work weekends. And that's a lifestyle too, like it means, and for me as an actor, I often don't know what my week is going to look like. Part of that is fun. I love to see what's going to come up, but I also means like I'm always having to change plans. Because I often don't get auditions till a day or two before. And then I'm rearranging schedules or childcare or whatever to make sure I can get this done. And then when you have to be like available, you know, for shooting and things like that. And like last week I tried to go, some friends lent me an apartment so that I could write for a couple of days. And it was an hour and a half outside the city. I got 45 minutes there, and my agent called me and was like, they've moved the dates for this thing that you're shooting. You have to come back for a COVID test. And, you know, and it's just like, I want to work. I love working.
Yeah.
But there's a whole thing that goes with it. And that is something you like have to make peace with, or it's not the job for you. And that's okay too, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we got a couple questions. So Addie is asking, how do you get yourself into character when preparing for a performance? Do you ever find that acting as a character changes who you are as a person?
That's interesting. That is a good question, Addie. How do I get into character? It depends on the project a little bit. Some characters feel closer to me and some not. There are different demands to performing, whether it's a theater piece or whether it's on film. I often try to do some meditating or breathing just to kind of ground myself, or some voice work if I want to kind of just make sure I'm in my body, and even some stretching, things like that, to just feel like I'm in my body and kind of ready. And then if there are particular things about the character, sometimes I'll listen to music. If there's a piece of music that might help me get emotionally into the place that I kind of want to be, or I might have, you know, something I'm thinking about, or I might even ask a person if I could just look in their eyes for a second and say something to them to kind of get me somewhere I want to go. And then in terms of, does acting ever change who you are as a person? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I'm affected by all the things that I am a part of. I think there is a way in which, you know, you have to have some boundaries for yourself and figure out like what is appropriate and what's, you know, you can go into some dark places, you can go into some delightful places, some strange places. And I think that's okay, because I think we contain all of those things inside ourselves. But therapy is also great. Therapy is great. To help kind of just make sure that you are you.
All right, great. So Sarah is asking, have you ever worked in voice acting for any productions? If so, is it similar to on-camera acting?
Yes, I have done a little bit of voice acting. I've taken a few classes and done a little bit of work on some video game, some small sort of things around here. It is like acting because it is acting. I am in awe of people who are great voice actors. I am not one. It is phenomenal what they can do because you are portraying so much in just a voice. My husband and I made a short film called Bedbugs, a Musical Love Story. And we had bedbug puppets, and the voice actors who did this, amazing. Like they sang, they portrayed whole characters. They had lovely, it's a whole different, the ability to articulate, the ability to really portray emotion. I thought it would be easier. I tried to get into it because I thought it would be easier, and it was very hard.
The whole family in a box of clothes at the thrifty
There's
bar.
a bit of bedbugs now.
Please. I am Bernardo. It is my great pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Hi, my name's Dina, and this here's Axel.
Hiya.
I'm Trudy. This is Doug.
Doug, the bug?
Tracy, you are so especial.
Maybe you don't know that.
But we do.
So cute.
Yeah.
Okay, Brooke is asking, does friendly and lively atmosphere that Vancouver provides help your creativity in acting, and do you prefer Vancouver to Hollywood?
Well, I've not worked in Hollywood, so I can't speak to that. I do love Vancouver. It's beautiful. It's temperate. No, and a lot of my family is not here, but in Canada, and so it's nice to be close. I would think I would also enjoy working in the States. I think I would also enjoy working elsewhere. Sometimes it does feel a bit like we're a small pond, and even though that's afforded me a lot of opportunity and I've really liked the freedom of that, sometimes I think it would be nice to be in LA or New York and have a different pace.
I don't think people really understand how much stuff is shot in Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's like everything CW, everything like
a lot of movies of the week. So like all the Lifetime
movies,
movies.
Hallmark.
And then a lot of series and stuff are shot here, or at least partially shot here.
And a lot of great movies too. I was literally this weekend randomly watching Deadpool 2, and I was like, oh wait, I know that building. I guess they're shooting this in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I grew up near Vancouver.
Reynolds is from here, so
I'm very familiar with it. It's a beautiful place. If you have not been, everyone should go. I mean, after pandemic.
When it's possible.
Right. So we've got an anonymous question. What advice would you give to someone who is interested in pursuing a career in entertainment? They've stolen my question, my final question of the day. That's great.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a difficult question to answer in some ways because, and I'm sure other people have spoken to this too, is that everybody kind of finds their own way there, which is actually a frustrating answer, I realize. So following what you're interested in, taking classes and studying, or it doesn't even always have to be a formal studying. When Jamie and I were in college together, I had an English major, but a communications minor, which was kind of focused on theater. And I loved learning. I loved that. In fact, I would recommend learn a lot about everything because as a person, I find that fascinating. And as a storyteller, I find that very useful and fascinating. But then when I moved out to Vancouver to pursue acting more professionally, well, to give it a shot, I took a lot of classes that were just with professionals, just kind of working on acting, trying to understand the business, learning the difference between theater and film. And so I would say wherever you're interested in, start guiding your interests towards those things. Take classes, find a mentor, learn about what that career looks like, because you might be surprised. You might be surprised that you thought you wanted to do this career and you don't, because once you see what it really is, it's different than what you thought, or it might lead you to something else that you discover you do really love.
Yeah, try things.
Yeah. Try things.
Yeah, because in college, like for instance, when we were in college together, like you were kind of forced to try everything, or lots of different things at least, and it's part of how you find where your interests lie. And if I'm anonymous person, if you are saying career in entertainment, that's a pretty broad range of possibilities, whether that's performance or design or lighting. Like there's so many possibilities for that. So just getting involved somewhere and trying to figure out where your interests lie is a good
and also there's so many tools at your disposal right now. Like, your cell phone probably shoots decent video, so if you wanted to experiment with like stop motion animation, or you wanted to, make a short film, like even the apps and stuff to be able to edit something together, you can give stuff a try. And for me, the most rewarding things that I've made, that I've been a part of, have been the things that I made myself.
So many people say that on this.
Yeah. Like so hard sometimes, and it's very joyful also, but it's so hard. My husband is great at like really being like, make your own things. You should write. You should got to do this. And he's a wonderful person for me to have married. Because it's also it's hard, and it's also you have a lot of self-doubts as an artist too. But sometimes I think I've also felt sometimes like I just want somebody to give me a job. Like I want somebody to pick me to do this one great thing. And when you're making your own stuff, you kind of feel like you have to like design the box, build the box, fill the box, sell the box. And sometimes I just want to fill the box. But
Yeah.
the truth is, I am more satisfied, and I've been more proud, and have more fully enjoyed things that I have been a part of creating, because then I get to use all the parts of myself, but also you have more control. Like when you're just one part of a system, you know, you don't always have as much say. When you kind of are the person who's writing the story or directing the story, you know, or editing it, you have more of a voice.
Yeah.
More yours, kind of.
Yep. 100% true. So Abigail is asking, you mentioned before that the most difficult aspect of auditioning / acting during COVID is that you're forced to be overly critical of yourself as you can do several takes. Do you feel like self-criticism has been a difficult part of acting or being creative even before the pandemic?
Absolutely.
That's a tough question.
Yeah. But yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I don't know creative people who aren't also self-critical and who aren't plagued by doubts, at least, you know, some of the time. In fact, I was just listening to a screenwriting podcast that I love, which is called Script Notes. And, you know, they're professional screenwriters who've done a ton of stuff, and they regularly talk about, you know, like everybody has that. Everybody has those doubts. And that's both encouraging, because even people who are, you know, what you would see as like extremely successful or very, you know, have been doing something a long time, still feel the same way. And it's also daunting because you're like, oh, this is just something I'm going to have to live with forever. So yes, I mean, I think the pandemic adds other pressures. I think we're all experiencing that things are just, you know, heightened. Yeah, but like, as I said, and I'm talking to myself when I say this, but trying to look at that as an opportunity instead of just something to be that's difficult, is the opportunities I've been able to learn like a lot about my work. I'm watching myself going like, oh, what I thought I was communicating is not coming across, or I'm doing a funny thing with my forehead. Why am I doing that? You know, whatever. You can learn things, which has been great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any artist, whether you're performing or painting or whatever it is, that is not, it's part of the job, because you're putting yourself out there as a job. I'm risking my as a job. And so part of your job is to be self-critical so that you can continue to learn and progress and et cetera, et cetera. But part of it is that you're putting it out there to be criticized too. And so that's hard.
Yeah.
Because you're anticipating that, you know?
Yeah. And it's also hard because you often don't know, like you get a lot of rejection as an actor, as a writer. Like I don't get most of the things I audition for. I don't get most of the things I apply for as a writer. Like I don't get them. And you don't often even know why. You know, no one's even picking up the phone and telling you, oh, you know, you did a great job. But, you know, if there's any feedback, often it's like, we went a different way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, yeah, I guess you did, but that's not useful for me in any way. So you never know if it's because of your performance or because of, you know, they cast somebody else that they were looking to match a mother and daughter, or they were, you know, I mean, I remember one time I went in for an audition, and I went at the last minute. I had this idea, and I went in and I did the audition, and I felt really good. Like I thought, I did what I wanted to do. I'm proud of this audition. And the director even kind of looked at me and said, yeah, I would shoot that. And I was like, great. And then I said, I hope you find a blonde kid. Because at the time I was more blonde, and I was auditioning for a mom part. And the truth is, I know they're going to hire the kid first and then find a parent who matches. So, you know, like,
yeah,
it's there. I mean, part of it is your performance and your work. And a part of it is something you have zero control over whatsoever. And you never know which part it was. And so we try to make peace with the idea of like going in and doing what you have to offer. In fact, one of the best pieces of advice I got from an acting teacher in town named Andrew McElroy was he had a series of questions he asks himself before every audition about the scene as part of his work, that you're prepping the scene. But the question that stuck out for me is he would ask himself, and now I ask myself, why is this scene lucky to have me? Like, why is this job? Why is this job lucky to have me? Why is this show lucky to have me? And what it did for me was it made me stop thinking about who I think they want, and trying to play this character that I think they're looking for. I think this mom is going to be like this, or I think the best friend is going to be like this. I think they're going to want someone. And instead being like, what do I have?
Right.
That would be awesome for this. Why? What do I have, particularly me, to give to this role? And it just, for me, like flips the situation a bit. So I'm not grasping for something, but I'm giving something. And that has been really useful.
That's great advice.
Yeah. I think it's also good like elsewhere, because
For sure.
yeah, what do you have particularly to give to the world? What do you have to say? Why is this job lucky to have you? Why is this friendship group lucky to have you? Like you have something particular to give.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna take it back. So we got a lot of really good, like hard-hitting questions up the front. This is great.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take it back to just so everyone gets to know you some more. Like, how did you first get involved in theater and performing?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I'm saying that because they're all good questions. I always loved acting. Yeah, I remember playing like Ray Sprayable's interior decorator in my grade 6 play, like these sorts of things.
Yes.
But I don't think I really thought it was something you could do. I think I knew some people did it, but nobody I knew, like nobody in my circle of it didn't seem like things that people I knew could do.
Right.
And then when I went to college, I didn't even minor. We didn't have a theater minor. That's why I didn't minor in theater. But
we didn't have a major. We just had the communications with an emphasis in theater.
Yeah. So I did an English major. First, I was a biology major because I was also really interested in science, and I was interested in everything. So I had a hard time just narrowing down at all, which is why theater is great because you get to like be everybody and explore and tell different stories. But after I was done, after I graduated from college, I actually went and did an internship at the North Shore Music Theater with you, partly just to sort of see what that would be like. And because I could work in the States for a little bit because I'd gone to school in the States. So I did that and it was really interesting. And then I went and like lived in Honduras for 2 years and taught grade 5. And then I went and did my master's in Amsterdam in English, language and culture kind of things. And then after that, I decided I wanted to move back to Canada. And I really knew then that I kind of wanted to give writing and acting a shot. I didn't know for sure if I could do it. I didn't know for sure. I kind of on some level thought it was selfish, like, because I would just love it because it was just something I liked to do. So it felt like, even though now as an adult, I philosophically absolutely believe that art is vital to the world. I think I sort of felt like, well, I'm not teaching, I'm not a doctor, I'm not doing some like tangible good for the world, which I felt was important in some way.
Right.
But I knew that if I didn't try, I would be really sad. Like I knew that if I didn't at least give it a shot. So I moved back home to Edmonton, where I'm from, Edmonton, Alberta, and I saved some money. And then I was going to move out to Toronto because they had Second City, and I was really interested in improv. That's also where we met. And because it was closer to New York and Boston, where I had been, I felt like it was just closer to other people I knew who were doing things. And then I had a good friend who was in Toronto, but who was moving to Vancouver to do her doctorate. And I looked at Vancouver and I thought, well, in Canada, there's not that many cities that are kind of like doing the kind of work that I would want to do. It's basically Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. Really. There's smaller things going on elsewhere, but those are the big cities. I thought Vancouver's closer to my family. It's beautiful. I could go there. And I kind of didn't want to go somewhere where I didn't know anyone. So I moved in with my old roommate out in Vancouver and started taking classes and started, I got an agent, I was auditioning for commercials. I started writing right then. And so like some plays, and I said yes to a lot of things, like just, will you paint the scene for this thing? I'm like, yes, will you do this? And you're just trying to get to know people and try things and learn and get into a network. I went to everything, I went to everything. We had like a cold reading series where people would read scripts. We had like, you know, everybody's play that was going on, I went. You know, every time there was like an industry talk, I went. You know, you're just trying to get plugged in and understand the scene, understand the craft, understand who your colleagues are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
So I got a couple questions. Gavin is asking, what made you change your major from biology? Do you still have an interest in STEM? And if so, how do you follow that interest?
Yeah, I am interested in everything. So I did my first year and a half as a biology major. So I was particularly interested in biochemistry. And so my first year was mostly biology, chemistry, calculus. I don't think I took physics anymore. Anyway, and then after a year and a half, I was really like, and I even had people like close family friends sort of being like, biology, you know, I mean, I remember them saying like, it's not that you can't do it. It just feels like you have other gifts, you know, because I was really interested in writing. I was really interested in theater, but I kind of, when I left high school, I kind of knew that if I wanted to keep going with English or theater or those kinds of things, I could come back to that. And I thought, if I don't continue with science now, I'm going to fall behind, because it would be harder for me to keep going in science, just with the kind of things that you would have to keep going with.
Right.
So I did that first. And then when I transferred, because I transferred to Calvin where we went to school.
That's
in
right.
my second year. And I remember meeting with my advisor, and I was just like, I am interested in education and philosophy and biology and chemistry and theater. She's like, Shauna, you got to pick a side of the campus. Like, you just have to, we got to focus somewhere. And I think I knew that English and theater was kind of where I wanted to be. But I was so, and also as I looked forward in I looked forward in the catalog of courses. And after the second year of biology, there were a lot fewer classes that interested me. I was really interested in like genetics and a few things. And then there was a wide swath of things that I was like, meh, less of that. Botany was not for me. And I remember looking through like the English and the theater courses, and I was like, all of these look interesting. Any of them. I was like, all of them. So, but in terms of like continuing that interest, I think it finds itself into my work often. I wrote a play called Charades. And in the middle of it, there's this like lovely monologue where the woman is doing a science experiment actually, and talking about a catalyst, what a catalyst does. And then it's actually a metaphor for the way social media has allowed for an affair to come into her marriage, kind of. But this idea that if this Facebook, whatever, had not existed, perhaps this affair would never have happened. So it finds its way into my work, is what I'm saying. I find
That's
I'm
really
still
cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat. So Allison is asking, where do you see your acting career in the next several years? Do you see yourself trying new things like you did with voice acting, or strengthening and fortifying current skills?
Yes. Yeah, I think in a way I'm always trying new things, and I'm always scared. So it's both and. You keep going, and I'm trying to always get better at the things I'm doing. I'm taking acting classes right now. I'm writing my first feature script, which I'm hoping to direct. And it's a process of constantly kind of pushing yourself forward, building on other skills. Like, I feel like all of these things are extensions of what I do, but they're still exploring new things. And you also don't know what doors will open. I've sometimes found that like I'm working at different things. I'm working at different things until an opportunity opens up, and then I go that way for a bit.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm asking this because I don't know the answer either, but it sounds like you stayed, like some people really focus TV and film, but are you still doing theater as well?
I don't do a lot of theater. I did more earlier.
Mhm.
I never really got super plugged in here as a theater actor. I found that by the time I got here, it's going to sound weird, but I was 27 or 28, but I hadn't gone to school here. I wasn't super connected. I found it really hard to I did some general auditions. I would audition for things. But the other part of it is there are so many actors. There are so many wonderful theater actors here and not enough jobs. And I just kind of didn't, it was a situation of like doors opening and not opening. That was a door that just felt like it didn't open for me. Now that doesn't mean I haven't done it. I wrote a play. In fact, like most of the plays I've written so that I would have a role, which doesn't always mean that I've gotten them. Sometimes people have produced the play and I'm not in it. But I wrote a play that got done at a professional theater here back in 2016, I think, a full-length play, and I got to play the lead, and it's actually the play that I'm turning into a feature now. And I loved it. It was fantastic. It was such a great opportunity. But it didn't open more doors as a theater actor. It's not, I didn't get more auditions. So yeah, whereas like TV stuff, I was getting work. I was getting callbacks. I was getting things. And so
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's also challenging in Vancouver. I mean, I think it's challenging everywhere, but Vancouver is interesting to me in that I feel that the worlds are very separate. The theater world and the film and TV world are very distinct, and there's not a lot of there are actors who cross over. There are people who cross over, but there's also not, like when I've been in a theater production, it's been a tough sell sometimes to people in the film and TV industry because it makes you unavailable. And my agent, she wants to support my theater stuff, but she would rather that I was available to work.
Sure. I mean, that's her job.
Yeah.
Okay, you answered this question that I had. Do you have a preference? Like between theater, TV, or film or whatnot, like in terms of how they work or your experience with them?
As an actor, I prefer the experience of being on stage, because I get to experience the whole story. Even if it's told in theater out of context, you get to live it in your body from beginning to end. You get to live it with the audience, and it's beautiful because it's different every night a little bit. It's very alive, but it's also when it's done, it's gone. Like you can't share that with anybody. That's the beauty of it. But it's also, whereas when I do TV and film, it lasts, and I can, friends across the world can see it, and my family can see me in like an A&W commercial or whatever, and it's something. And I would say the same is true for, the shorts that I've directed, or the one I directed, the music video I directed, and the short film that I wrote and acted in. I have it, and it feels like something that I get to keep in a different way. So they're definitely beautiful. It's also, as an actor, you have more control in a way in theater, because even though there's a director and all of those things, you're very much in charge of your performance. Whereas when you're an actor on TV and film, you actually don't know which shot they're going to use, which take. You're starting and stopping. Often when I show up to work for TV or film, it's different than what I was anticipating. So I'll prepare a scene. I'll imagine how I think it's going to go. I'll imagine maybe what I think I'll be doing and how I might move. And then when I get there, the set looks different than I was expecting. The actor opposite me is someone of a different like feeling than I was expecting, perhaps, or the director wants to do it in a different way. Or, there will be a thing like, oh, this whole scene, you're going to be folding this sheet because we have this great idea for a cut. And now my whole scene is like me thinking about folding the sheet while I do the lines. So I just feel like I don't, I'm sure that when you're an A-list star on your own movie, it's a little bit different. You have a little bit more say, a little bit more control. But when you're mostly showing up to kind of populate a world, you don't have as much control.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Abigail's asking, do you have a single favorite project that you've done? If so, why was it your favorite? That's always a hard question.
Yeah. this is a hard for me because I think I've enjoyed a lot of things differently.
Yeah.
I directed my first short film called Trying at the same time that I was in the full length play that I had written at a theater. It just so happened that they were going to be like the short film that I directed was part of a contest, and I'd gotten into the contest. I had to pitch to get in, and I had to get through several layers. And I didn't tell them that I was going to be in a play at the time because I knew that they wouldn't love that because it was all consuming. But these were two great opportunities that just happened to be at the same time. And so I talked with my husband, and we were just like, we'll just make it work. We will make this work. And so I literally left. I did the Saturday, we shot in the morning. I left to do the matinee. I came right back. Like we shot some more. I went and did the evening performance, like got up, we shot, I went and did the matinee, and it was crazy, but it also heightened both of those experiences for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was, in some ways, I probably would have enjoyed each one a little bit more if they had been separate, but that wasn't an option. We made it work. And so I, at the time, was like getting to direct my very own story that I wrote. And I was getting to be in a story that I wrote. And that month was probably like the highlight.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
Stressful, but amazing.
Yeah.
Mackenzie's asking, what are some of the challenges of being an actor, director, and a writer, and how have you learned to overcome them? That's a very large question.
A very large question. Mackenzie, well, one of the challenges of being a creative person, which we've kind of already talked about, is just your own fear and self-doubt. And so those things they keep creeping up on you. And so I try to remember, I think it's Annie Dillard who says you got to jump off cliffs all the time and build your wings on the way down. And I like that. You have to take some chances. I take cautious chances, but I still push myself. I often will use deadlines for a contest or deadlines for something else to push myself to make something in the absence, because one of the challenges for me as a writer and actor and director is that with the exception of acting, where my agent will send me my auditions and things like that, most of the stuff is self-made work, and that's really challenging for me to know that nobody cares if I write another thing. Nobody cares if I like to think that people will enjoy it if they see it, but nobody's waiting for it. Nobody's paying me for it. And so part of it is you have to find some ways of motivating yourself and disciplining yourself to make the things that you want to make. For me, I would say that's one of the biggest challenges. And then this guy probably goes without saying, but more people want to do these things than are getting paid to do these things. I don't work as much as I want to as an actor. I don't work as much as I want to as a writer. And many of the people who I know who do these things also have other jobs or also do other things. So that's a challenge too. And if you can make peace with that, if you can kind of go, I love it, and I'm going to keep telling stories, I'm going to find ways to do this, I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Enzo asks, what is the best and what is the worst part about being an actor?
It is so fun to get to be other people. Because you really get to explore parts of yourself that you might not feel free enough to explore in other ways, or aren't appropriate, aren't appropriate in life to be, but to get to be these sort of wild people, even just to get to play somebody else. It's fun to be on set. It's fun to be on stage and to get to pretend.
I was gonna say, this is probably a great time for your reel where you get some clips.
And then I'll talk about what's hard about it.
So cute. So
this is from Babysitter's Club.
Yeah. So yeah, that's you in the Babysitter's Club on Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
which you're working on season 2 right now.
Yep, season 2 we are shooting right now.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's really fun. And I mean, it's fun when it's something like this too, that, hopefully will keep going because it's a really fun series and there's lots of books. So hopefully they'll get a few seasons. Yeah, and it's well written and well directed. It's been a really fun project to be a part of.
That's great. Yeah, let's watch some more.
Sure.
Josh, do we have some audio?
Tables.
Ben wrote these crazy songs for his kids to help them remember.
So he was a singing scientist. He must have been hip.
People loved being around him. Why would anyone...
Okay, we're good. Thank you, Mrs. Martin.
I need to stay in the room. Protocol.
Oh.
This is the clip I was thinking about when you were talking about getting to explore things you wouldn't normally.
A shame.
Yeah. Yep, I walked in and found my husband dead in the scene. And he was played by one of the New Kids on the Block, Joe. Yeah. Joe, I think he goes by now.
Yes, Joe McIntyre now. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a super fun show to be a part of. That sort of stuff is so interesting. Like and just how they do the blood. Like I don't get tired of that. I don't get tired of the magic of filmmaking. How they make things happen. I really don't. I think it's delightful. I would also say, in answer to, was it Mackenzie or somebody's question about the difficult part of being an actor is also you're incredibly vulnerable. Like that's your job. You're practicing what we kind of often call being private in public. So you're trying to find these moments that are very personal, very like natural, very human, but you're doing them in a public space that you probably otherwise wouldn't. Or it's a heightened level of drama. And in that scenario too, you can't see them, but there's 40 people standing around us while we're doing that scene. We're there and there's like literally 40 people who are like holding mics, who are just watching, who are waiting for the cameras to stop so they can keep doing their job, or who are going to step in and clean up the blood or adjust my costume. And that's, trying to wrestle with that kind of like the anxiety of that, of like a lot of people watching you, and also there being a lot of demands on that. In that particular show also, I had to, it was, so you can see that I'm wearing like a little nightie or something and there's blood. So when it wasn't bloody at first, I had to go and like go to my husband. But there was only like 2 nighties and they were really worried about how many shots we were going to get out of this, because every time it gets bloody, we have to re-roll, and you usually take a lot of shots of the same scene.
Right. So you only get so many takes then.
You only get so many takes. And then they have to like clean your hair and clean your face. And so I remember when we were getting ready to shoot this, and it was one of the first bigger roles that I had. They said, well, let's block it first. And when you block it, you kind of just like walk through and sort of say, I'm going to start here. I'll stop here, and then I'll move here. And they're planning all of the camera moves around that, the lighting, everything around that. And then when it was time to go, they yell action, and I walked in, and I saw the guy laying there, and I had this really like human moment of just, and I was about to go to him, and they yelled, cut, 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 cut. And they just said, Shauna, you didn't stop there when we blocked. So the camera wasn't ready to stop there. You gotta just keep going. And I was like, oh, sorry. I'll do it again. But it sucked because I had this very like human moment, and I was still under like the difference of film and TV. I was still kind of like, oh, right. I have to do what's kind of planned. And they were nervous because of the costume situation and the blood and all these kinds of things. Sure. So I had this actually lovely moment because I started to panic because they were about to go right away again. And I didn't feel like I was emotionally ready to start again. And I had this lovely moment where the woman who was doing my makeup just said, I think she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, makeup needs a minute. And she just looked at me and she said, you tell me when you're ready. And I just felt this like,
that's very sweet.
Because sometimes people forget that actors are people, and that doing this emotional work maybe takes just a second. Like I might need just 30 seconds to just, and they're worried about other things. They're trying to get the camera ready, the lights ready. So they just need you to be ready when they're ready to go. But she like looked at me as a person for a second. I was like, you need a sec. And it was just this like gift.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great moment. So Caitlin's asking, did you ever have an interest in writing or English outside of the theater?
Yes. I wrote a bit of a blog for a while that's no longer up, and I do have I have a series of essays I would like to write. They've been percolating kind of in my head and in little note cards, and it's on my bulletin board over there among the other projects that I'd like to write that are there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Kenzie is asking, what advice would you give to a STEM student who is struggling between pursuing a career in STEM or pursuing a career in education?
Oh, I would first say I probably shouldn't be giving you advice on this. But I will just say, like, listen to yourself. Like, it's okay if you don't know right now. I think that's one of the biggest things. It's okay if you don't know right away. And it's also okay to change your mind. I think I was so fearful of like making a choice and that
and then it was like a mistake and then you couldn't take it back or something.
Yeah, that I was gonna do the wrong thing. And I was so afraid of like making the wrong choice and you know, you can try things and you can, I think if you listen to yourself, you know, which is the process of like figuring out what do you like? What brings you joy? You know, what feels like you know, and maybe you won't know right away. Maybe you need to try a few things. Maybe you need to take a class where you're student teaching. Maybe you need to, you know, do an internship, you know, in a lab somewhere or in whatever area of STEM you're working.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe you need to see what the real job is like, because sometimes your ideas of a job and the actual job are different.
I would say like most of the time.
Yeah.
This is a good one, I think. Was there a class, like maybe a non-performance class or something that you have taken that you think has proven invaluable to you or in your career or just to you as a person? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like, I think I said earlier, you know, like having had a liberal arts background, I really loved everything. I really loved, and I still love, I love reading. I love learning about new things. But I would say probably one of the biggest things is traveling, which we can't do right now. But having lived in other places, I lived in Honduras briefly. I did a semester in Kenya. I lived in Amsterdam. I lived in Michigan, which was very different for me.
Me too.
Yeah, and I think all of those things, part of what you're doing is opening yourself up to different human experiences, different stories. And I feel like that is really important if you want to be a storyteller. It doesn't mean you can't be a good storyteller and never have left, you know, your small town in North Dakota. Like you could be great. But as a person, to just experience these things and open your mind to see other people, I think it's profound.
Yeah. So this is one, has there ever been a time where you had a strong disagreement between you or a director or some other kind of department, and how did you handle that?
Yes, that is an interesting situation. It's also sometimes, I don't want to say solved, but it's framed by the hierarchy of where you are. When I'm on set, if I'm there to be a day player, and by day player, I mean someone who's coming in for a couple of days, maybe on a show, I'm not a regular cast member, you know, I'm just coming in and doing a small part. Most people are, it's not that they're not happy that I'm there or glad to work with me or whatever, but like my big ideas are not really necessary for this show. And I find, so usually a disagreement is solved by hierarchy, like whoever, you know, and by time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, like I remember I showed up on one set and I had worked out, the character I was playing was this kind of like businesswoman, and I really wanted this moment where she like could just check her watch. And it seems like a little thing, and of course it's not a big deal, but I thought it would be good for her character and I liked it. So I asked if I could have a watch. And the person who was doing props was in a hurry, and they were just like, is it a story point? And I was like, no. Like by story point, they mean like, is it in the script? Like, is it important that she looks at her watch?
Like, yeah.
You know, is it important to the scene that she have a watch? And I was like, no, I just think it would be nice. And he said, most people use their phones. for a watch because he didn't want to get me a watch. And I knew that my hands were full. I couldn't grab my phone then, and it was just a whole thing. And you just have to be like, okay, I guess I don't need a watch, and like, on the one hand, nobody wants to be the actor who's, making a big deal about a watch for their little.
Right.
And on the other hand, you think like, oh, I just have no control over anything. I just am trying to add my part to the whole thing. It's harder on the other aspect. So for example, like when I was in the play that I wrote, being directed by someone else, I had some disagreements with the director occasionally, who is a friend of mine and was a huge supporter of the play. But sometimes I would say, like, I'm not sure about this. And he was like, I'm the director now. Now you are the playwright and the actor, or now you're the actor, not even the playwright. This is not your decision, and you have to let it go.
Yeah.
Or just think about it in the shower for the rest of your life,
Right. Good choice.
One or the other. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for doing this with us and chatting with us tonight. It's been so great to talk to you.
So nice to see you, Jamie.
We're going to have to get together again sometime soon.
I would love that.
Excellent.
And good luck to all of you in whatever you're pursuing.
Yeah, definitely. We've got all kinds of great people. So again, thank you so much for being here. And audience, thank you for joining us. Thanks again so much, Shauna. It's been so great.
Bye.
Have a great week.
Thank you. See you.